Right now, let's talk to Louise Calvey. She's an independent refugee and asylum specialist and joins us now. Good morning to you.
Good morning,
Thank
Julia.
you very much indeed for joining us. Look, Amnesty have said this is totally inappropriate. They're saying all talk of barges, cruise ships, former military barracks should be abandoned. Anyone seeking asylum in this country should be housed in decent accommodation with proper facilities, and crucially, their claims should be properly and consistently processed instead of more ministerial cruelty. We need sweeping asylum reforms. Now, I think we all agree we want sweeping asylum reforms. We might disagree on what they should be. Is there anything wrong with housing people on this barge? I mean, it looks quite nice. I mean, it certainly looks like better accommodation than most students get to live in.
I think I'm slightly frustrated that we're here. You know, lots of us here this morning debating accommodation for 500 people when there's 160,000 people waiting for an asylum decision in the UK at huge cost to the taxpayer and at huge waste of their lives. And I think that's what we're seeing here. We're seeing government looking at clickbait headlines instead of solving the problem that they've created.
And solving the problem would mean what to you?
Making asylum decisions. There was a 59% drop last year, Julia, in asylum decision making. 59% drop in 1 year. That's astonishing.
We're seeing on average Home Office workers that we're looking at just one case being decided a week. I mean, clearly someone ain't doing their job. We know the Home Office isn't fit for purpose. Doesn't seem that any Home Secretary can take control of that. We've got a massive, I think it's a civil service issue more than anything else, than a government issue. I think that is the key problem. But you say it's just 500 people. I completely accept that. We've currently got 51,000 asylum seekers in some 400 hotels. They cost more than £6 billion a day. Not very good for local communities to have them in local hotels. These people aren't people who are businesses or tourists who are travelling and spending money in the local community. There is an impact there. They have to go somewhere, even if it's just 500 of them. I mean, what's the issue?
I mean, you know, obviously, I don't support putting people on boats.
Why not? But there are lots of people who choose to live on boats. People go on a holiday on cruise ships, for goodness sake.
Absolutely. I've got a canal boat myself, Julia, and I enjoy it very much.
So you've got a canal boat. But you choose to do that as a treat for yourself on a holiday.
I do.
But it's terrible for an asylum seeker to be put on a barge.
Julia, that's my choice, though. It's my choice to have a holiday.
Well, it's their choice to come here.
Boat.
It's probably better than being in a camp, living outdoors in a tent in Calais.
I think if you look at the details of this particular vessel, it was in service, I think, by the Dutch, and it was decommissioned by them because of significant welfare and fire safety concerns.
Well, it's being refitted at the moment.
And ultimately, I think someone died on this boat, an Algerian man, in 2008. So what we're seeing is government recycle failed initiatives in other countries. That's clearly not an indication of success. And again, it's unnecessary. There are 8,600 Afghans that crossed in small boats last year that are still waiting for an asylum decision. If you can't make a decision about an Afghan national claiming asylum in this country, there you go, Julia, make a positive decision for 8,600 people that are clearly from a war-torn country, and I've just saved you in that minute more money as a taxpayer than this boat.
The key thing is, while someone is applying to asylum and waiting in that very long process, they're not allowed to work and they're given subsistence money, so their life is miserable. They're also not making a contribution. The reality is, an awful lot of these people, once they do get through that system eventually, will also not necessarily be making a contribution. Realistically, you have to have skills, you have to be able to get a job, speak the language, etc., etc. We know a lot of these people, when they're applying for asylum and after, even if they get it, are ending up working in black market, in the black economy. They're out of the system, and often they're being exploited. And we know that's what people traffickers often want to bring them here to do. The idea that we should be clearing that backlog of applications and making decisions, but the idea that doing that will solve the problem is untrue, because many of them will still be here. That won't stop people coming here, and they'll still be, many of those people, frankly, a drain on our country.
If you've hit the nail on the head there, Julia, I think. And I think that the more punishing you make the asylum system, the worse the outcomes for people are after that asylum system. How do you start to think about rebuilding your life, getting a job, learning English, when you're stuck on a barge off Portland Port? Mm-hmm. That is the problem. These punishing environments are ultimately massively counterproductive, not just for the human going through it, but for everyone contributing to that system through their taxes, for us as a country. The quicker you can get people going, the better support you give people, the more likely it is that they're going to have a good outcome after the asylum process. So, of course, I work with refugees. Of course, I'm a tofu-eating wokerati. Of course, that's what I am. But I think here what we've got is a convergence of views. None of us want this huge waste of taxpayers' money. None of us think this government has got a clue about how it's managing this situation. I mean, frankly, it couldn't manage its way out of a paper bag. This is not any form of effective asylum and migration policy by anyone's estimation. And all of us want good outcomes for people at the end of that asylum process. Yeah. That's what we need government to focus on. For God's sake, get a grip on reality and just find proper solutions.
But there is still an issue where, actually, an awful lot of people in this country, they'll say, yes, obviously a genuine asylum seeker from Afghanistan, other people, but actually there's concern. An awful lot of these people, yes, they come from countries where life isn't very good, but British people, by and large, aren't really sure how many we would like, because we are talking about, and Suella Braverman was much mocked for this as Home Secretary when she made this point, but I think she was quite right. You know, you are looking at tens of millions, even hundreds of millions of people who would say, well, actually, if I've got a chance, I can go and have a better life in the UK. Well, how many do we take? I mean, at the end of the day, do we take every woman from Afghanistan? Every single woman in Afghanistan has a claim to come here. I mean, in theory, that would be a great idea. But it's not practical. It's not going to happen, is it? So where do we draw the line? Do we take every single person on our crowded little island with massive debt, with people who can't afford to pay their own heating bills, and say, yeah, we're going to take every single one of the world's poor and dejected?
Oh, Julia, firstly, I would like to say I would love to be in a situation where you and I are talking about the finer points of our humanitarian protection policies and debating those, but it just feels like we're like years away from that. We're talking about a barge for 500 people instead, which is just, I mean, it's just madness, isn't it? But going back to your question, the reality is that no, not everyone wants to come here. I mean, that's been demonstrated through our Ukraine policy. Actually, if you look at the scale of displacement from Ukraine, the numbers coming to the UK has been really modest comparative to the immediate surrounding countries. I think,
but that's obvious. We always hear that. It's like Ukrainians going to Poland,
and also, to be honest, Julia, the way that this country's doing at the moment, there isn't a massive influx of people. In fact, we're seeing the opposite. We're seeing people queuing for a day to try and get out of the country.
That's called a holiday. Right. No, good. We'll have to leave it there. Look, I promise you that I would like you to come on and we will talk about that in more detail and we'll have a more sensible conversation about those specifics. But Louise Calvey, independent refugee and asylum specialist and professional wokerati, thank you very much indeed for joining.